welcome to Living Room Wisdom, where your story is your glory. I am Patrina Wisdom, author, speaker, and creator of the Pure Abundance Retreat in Belize. And today I have an amazing opportunity to interview this beautiful woman, Miss Tamika Bickham. We're out here in Miami, and Tamika is a spokesperson, a speaker, a storyteller, and an all-around badass woman. So I'm excited to get to know you better and to share you with everybody out here watching. So where I'd love to start, first off, welcome.
And first off, thank you for having me and for that awesome introduction. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, you deserve it. What I want to start with, though, is, as entrepreneurial women, as the badasses that we are, we talk a lot about our businesses, but I really like to start with who you really are. Like, at your core, who is Tamika?
Yeah. I'm a lover of life. I'm a lover of fun. Hello, hence living in Miami, and a reason I haven't left for a long time. I'm a passionate person. I am a storyteller, and even though that relates to my business, I feel like it's something that's so deeply ingrained in me. That's why I love that you said you started off with your story is your glory. So I'm like, we're gonna have so much fun talking
alignment, right?
Yes, talking about stories. And ever since I was a little kid, I loved watching visual stories, and ended up turning that into my career in journalism. And it's what I do now with clients and in our work. But I feel like being a storyteller is at the core of who I am because I'm a listener. I like to ask questions. Even with my friends, they're like, just give us a break. It doesn't always have to be this deep interviewing thing that we do. But I'm just a naturally curious person who likes to understand and connect with people on a deeper level. And not everyone is always comfortable with that, but I feel like that's kind of why I'm here, is to help bring that out of people. Which it seems like is what you do as well.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that. What I want to point out here is I love that you took your natural skills, your natural abilities, your natural gifts and talents, if you will, and turn that into a career. I feel like I definitely was on that same path. I've always been what my mom used to call nosy. It's not nosy, it's curious. I genuinely want to get to know people. I'm genuinely interested in their life. And so tell me a little bit, because I know you actually have a journalism background. You were in media. You were, on television, newscasting, by the way, which is something I wanted to do when I was younger.
Oh, really?
I just did. I wasn't willing to go through the schooling and do that whole path.
Small market thing, middle of nowhere, reporting on the cow fields, whatever.
I wanted to report on what I wanted to report on. So tell me a little bit about that journey. How did you get into journalism? What was that path like? And tell us about the pivot, because obviously you're kind of doing it in a different way now. So I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, definitely. I always knew I loved telling stories, and I actually didn't want to be on camera because it made me really nervous, and I just wasn't totally comfortable. And also, I wanted to be at network. So if you think about the 2020, the Dateline, the kind of long form, 60 minutes type of storytelling is what I wanted. And really, in those cases, the producers are the ones that do most of the research and the writing, which is what I love about storytelling, and not just the performance of showing up on camera. But just kind of going through college here at the University of Miami, majoring in broadcast journalism, my mentors and my professors were like, give this a shot, do the small market thing. You can always go behind the scenes later if you want. So I took their advice, and I ended up going to Montgomery, Alabama as my first job out of...
Really?
And I actually applied for 88 different on-camera reporting jobs right out of college. I remember at the time printing DVDs and sending them, and no one does that anymore. But the one job that actually called me for an interview was in Montgomery, but it's the capital of Alabama, and there were actually a lot of interesting things that were going on.
I can imagine. Yes.
To say the least. So that's really where it started making, and I'll say most people think even as a reporter, hey, you're making good money. I was making making $10.58 an hour
Stop it.
out of school as a reporter on camera. Yeah, which a lot of people don't realize. You're like, I had friends who were in that industry, like bartending at night and a reporter by day, to be able to pay bills. But there's really no other job I've had that I've learned so much just about life and how things work. But I took that opportunity. I grew a lot in 2 years, came back to Miami, and moved back here as a reporter.
Yay! Oh, that's awesome. I love it.
Which was a lot of
Paid
fun.
your dues.
Yeah, I paid, exactly. There you go. I paid my dues. I came back to Miami where I had my contacts. I had interned, and they said, okay, you grew, you did the things we told you to do, because I was constantly seeking advice and feedback on my performance. So I said, hey, let me see how this is in the larger market. And I still had that feeling like of misalignment. But then when I came back here, I even had less opportunities to tell the type of stories that I felt like I really wanted to, because of the pace of a large market and crime and shootings and smash and grabs and police chases. You have all of that in a city like Miami. And ultimately, I just couldn't take the negativity anymore.
I love it.
It's hard, and especially now when media is constantly attacked.
I don't watch it at all.
Yeah,
I can't.
And I mean, it's even, the last time I showed up on air at a local station was in 2014, so it's been some time. So I know it's even changed so much more since then. But I can't imagine actually being a reporter today, just in this current landscape, and even with everything that's happened over the last couple of years. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall, and people tend to forget, like, that we are humans in that industry. And the things you see day in and day out really have an effect on you.
I can imagine. There's a couple things you said that I just want to touch on. You talked about alignment, for one. And me meeting you and feeling your energy, like, I can't even imagine you being in that environment where you're having to talk about all of these horrible things every single day, and what that would do to you, right? How that eats you up inside spiritually. Right? The other thing that I loved that you talked about is that, she really talked about how she rose to her success in journalism. People think, oh yeah, I'm just going to go be a journalism. I'm going to be on like the hottest shows right away. But in reality, you do have to pay your dues.
Absolutely.
And that's in any industry. That's whether you're in a career like corporate America, whether it's entrepreneurship. And I think sometimes people really lose sight of like the struggle, the sacrifice, the journey that it takes to get someplace. Because all they see is the shiny person on screen. And they don't see the backstory, which is part of the reason why we're doing this podcast, right? Because we want to hear the story behind the story. And so I'd love to hear about the pivot, about the transition. Like, okay, what was the like defining moment where you're like, I can't do this anymore, this is not in alignment, and how you came to the decision to step into the arena that you're in now?
Yeah, thanks for that question. I don't know if there was one defining moment other than like, I really learned to listen and tap into my body, because I realized, and like, I feel like I'm someone who's pretty in tune with myself. But I had day after day driving to work and like crying on the way to work, having like the shakes and feeling very, very anxious on my way in, just because I didn't know what I was going to get that day. And it had nothing to do with the people that I was working with or, my employer. It was more so just every day you walk in is like a new kind of horror. And that sounds a little extreme, but it was just like, I don't know if I can handle it today. So when I realized that, and that wasn't something that was going to go away, I felt like it was my body telling me, and through therapy as well, my body telling me like, this is not right for you.
And you listened.
That's the other piece of it, right, is listening to that. So I listened, because I let it go on for a while. But then I did listen, and I left. I called it fun employment for a while. I didn't have another opportunity, but I just said, I'm going to take some time and really think about what feels good. And what feels good is telling stories, but telling stories that positively impact our communities. So
I love it.
That's really the pivot, which turned into a couple of different full-time jobs, actually working in nonprofit arts, which was my second major in college, so it kind of felt like I could tie in both the journalism and the arts background as well. And I was telling stories for the symphony and our Performing Arts Center on our performers and musicians, creating content, creating videos. And that's where the side hustle started, when I realized, hey, I'm kind of a one-person marketing department in a lot of these roles, doing a little bit of everything. And I started my, at the time, entirely video production company on the side. And it was just me being out, like in my full-time job, and somebody asked me, hey, by the way, we need a video on this thing. Can you do it for us? And I'm like, let me Google how to start a business.
I love that.
And that's really how it started.
And so tell us where you are now. Because now you're not just a solopreneur kind of bootstrapping it, like going, oh yeah, let me Google how to do it. Sure, I can do that. Right? Now you have like a full-blown media company. And so share a little bit about that transition, you know, because I think there's a lot of entrepreneurs out here. I know I work with a lot of entrepreneurial moms or wantrepreneurs as well, wantrepreneur moms, and they don't know where to start. They think like it has to be all pretty and perfect, wrapped up with a bow in order for them to start. And in reality, I think most successful entrepreneurs, we totally fucking bootstrapped it from the beginning. Like, you know, it's like I have a skill, I have the will, I have, you know, the work ethic, and I'm just going to go for it and build the plane as I'm flying. And it sounds like that's what you did.
Build the plane in the air, right? Exactly.
So where has that gotten you? And tell us how long that journey has been also to get where you are now.
I officially started the business in December of 2015. And the next year I just had one client, which was that client that said, hey, can you produce this video? So there was really...
Wink, wink.
And we did, and it was great. And I think I ended up working for like $20 an hour doing that project. But, you know, you live and you learn. But it was a great experience. But I really just took one project at a time for probably the next 3 years. And then in 2018, I got laid off from my full-time job. So that was really the crossroads. And up until then, I was only doing video production and video storytelling for nonprofits and government. So getting laid off from my full-time job was then like, hey, am I going to get another full-time job? Where it seems like I don't really tend to like any of them. Not that there was anything wrong per se, but I think that it was kind of telling me, hey, give this thing a shot, because you've grown kind of organically without telling anybody about what you do, you know, in that very first phase where you're kind of keeping it hush-hush. And hey, if I put this thing out here, let's see what it could actually turn into. So in the last 3.5 years, that's really what we did. And now we are a video and content marketing agency that focuses on brand messaging, organic content, storytelling through video, written content, like blogs, video blogs, and other things along those lines, but really helping people be authentic, tell their story so that they can connect with their customers in an organic and authentic way.
I love it. I love the journey. I'm such a sucker for like hearing people's journeys because you trusted yourself. Like ultimately you were in a position where you lost your job. Most people may have freaked out in that moment. But
and I did.
I mean,
of course I did.
And shaking and quivering, you moved into this path of entrepreneurship, decided to bet on yourself. I love that you said, you know, I had been doing this business since 2015, but didn't really tell anybody, because I know there's a lot of y'all out there right now that have a side hustle that's making you money, that you're absolutely love to do and would love to make a full-time thing, but there's this piece of you that's still hiding. And we were talking about hiding, right? That's definitely been part of my journey in the beginning. And it sounds like you also had this kind of hiding, imposter syndrome type of experience going on that you had to push through in order to say, you know what, I'm doing it. And so that is amazing. And so I know that this type of resiliency also comes from someplace. So I'd love to hear about what your greatest challenge has been in life, or one that you're willing to share.
That's a great... I knew you were going to ask me that too, and I was like, I really got to think, because there's a lot of different challenges at different stages. I could say, just on one hand, having dealt with depression, which was really around that time, and
it's a big one.
Yeah, was really around that time in 2014 when I knew I wanted to leave my career in TV. I was still in a contract. I was terrified to admit it because I had a lot of people in my corner who had opened those doors for me. So that was probably the first really big challenge where I had to follow my gut and listen to myself rather than be worried about what other people thought.
Yes.
So I'd say that challenge combined with the challenge of 2017 and 2018, which is when I lost my job. And it was kind of like this period of time where everything personally and professionally felt like it blew up. My 8-year-old cousin suddenly passed away, which was just, obviously horrific for the family. So having to deal with an unexpected loss, and in those cases, although it shouldn't, causes you to take a step back and look at what's really important.
Yeah.
So going through that in combination with losing my full-time job, the end of a relationship, and and then having some autoimmune issues pop up and painful rashes, losing my hair, and I think it was a combination of all the stress and probably unhealthy eating, like all of that at once.
Yeah. Really
threatening, I feel like, my health, my happiness, my career. I really took a step back and said, what feels best to me? How do I need to listen to myself? And how do I want to move forward? And it was kind of in that moment of like, hey, realizing that my health can be threatened at any time. My happiness can be threatened at any time, especially when a loved one dies unexpectedly and untimely. I really decided to start living more fearlessly.
Yes.
And say, hey, go for it. What's the worst that can happen? I've made it so far, and I've done okay so far. Just step into like what it is you really want to do, because you'll never know if you don't try.
100%. And so that was 2015 to 2017. Yep. 17, 18.
Yep.
So what is that, like 2-3 years?
2-3 years.
What triggered the depression? Was there an event? And how did you handle that and move through that? Because had you not gone through that depression in 2015, you may not have had the tools to handle 2017, 2018. So I'd love for you to share that.
Yeah. Thanks for that question. As far as what triggered it, I think it was a combination of things, because from my understanding, my depression tends to be situational. So with whatever's going on in my environment, which was definitely feeling misaligned with my career and feeling trapped, really caused it for me. And then probably in combination with a relationship that wasn't going well at the time, and I felt very didn't know which direction to go. And all of that kind of combining definitely triggered that. But I'm definitely solutions oriented, so I sought out therapy and help to help me move through that.
Yes.
And just knowing what that experience was like, that hey, I can take specific steps to get on the other side of this. Let me know that I need to do that when that comes up again in the future. So I think that's really what guided me as other challenges have come up, and knowing that like, hey, this might not be the last time this happens to you in your life, because hey, we all go through challenges, and not just once or not just twice, but at least I know what the tools are and what's accessible to me to help me get to the other side.
Yeah, and I'm like, I just want to take a minute to like be present with that, because it's so important. And there's so many Black people in general, women that, specifically women, I'll say, and then Black women especially, or women of color in general, or diverse backgrounds, we have such a programming of needing to be superwoman, right? Needing to be strong, like we have it all figured out all the time. And the truth is, we might be hecka strong, right? We might be able to do it all, and we still are women. There's like this part of us that does need, desire to be taken care of. Absolutely. I don't like the word need. But there's some sort of an innate thing within us, I believe, that does not allow us to ask for help. And there's stigmas around mental health, just all of these different things. So I just think the amount of courage that it took for you to go and seek out that help, and then look at the payoff. You now had this toolbox where when other things arise, you're able to take care of yourself impeccably because of a choice that you made in 2015. So I just really want to honor you for that.
Thank you.
And thank you for sharing, because I know it's not always easy to share that sort of thing. And I think you know a little my story, but I lost my husband to suicide in 2009 and had no clue he was even experiencing any kind of depression or where it stemmed from or anything. So I also want to honor you for being here, because that could have taken another turn as well. So now I just want to pivot and kind of talk about what you feel like your contribution or your why, your impact on the world is, and how you're doing that, maybe through media, or maybe you have another way that you're planning on doing that. Like, what's your vision for your life, for this life that you decided you were going to create on your terms, which I love. Thank you.
That's such a big question and a great question. I still go back to the storytelling thing because I feel like I have this innate ability to hear what other people say and connect dots for them that they can't for themselves. And that's really fun for me. And I think it gives them tools that they can use to grow their businesses or flourish in their personal lives and be vulnerable and open up. I think when you're vulnerable, it opens up the door for others to be as well. So I think just fostering that connection and showing people the impact of a well-told story.
Okay.
Because we tell stories. We're telling stories right now. We tell stories with our friends, our family members, and that's what fosters that connection. And I think we all know, and especially after the last 3 years of a pandemic, like how much we all need and crave that connection. And how it makes our lives better. So I feel like I'm a matchmaker in a way for people and their stories.
I love it. And so 5 years from now, where will you be? What will you be doing? And how will you be impacting? Because when I see you, I see a star. I see a book. I see like all sorts of amazingness, like you're building this bridge, if you will. And I feel like this is something you were called to. And correct me if I'm wrong, I'm kind of like, I'm a lot spiritual woo-woo, right? I do believe everything happens for a reason, and I almost feel like all of these events that happened in that condensed period of time were to push you out of your comfort zone and get you on the path that Spirit had intended for you, and you said yes. And so I'm interested to hear, what you kind of feel, because a lot of times we know, but we resist it. Like, what do you feel like over the next 5 years this is going to become?
As an entrepreneur, I'm just trying to figure out the rest of 2022. 5 years.
In your gut, like, what's the scary God-sized dream that you don't say out loud?
Definitely having produced my first documentary. Or maybe second. Amazing. That's really what gets me excited. And what's really cool is we do work with some clients. Like, we just did an 8-minute Black History Month piece for one of our clients that has an internal program for their employees. And they give us total creative control to interview leaders and history makers. And
I love it.
And tell those stories. So it's fun to be able to do that for those clients who just want to educate their internal audience. But I definitely see it on, like, coming up with my own documentary idea and producing that from beginning to end. I don't know what it is yet. I've been giving it some more thought and need to figure out funding and all those other things that come with producing a documentary.
Well, this all goes back to the asking for help. And I happen to know a videographer / media person who's maybe in the room right now, maybe not. who has done documentary films and, might be able to assist along that path. Okay. So there's power in speaking these things out loud, right? As we know, being in the community that we're in together, being willing to ask for help, speaking up these really scary God-sized dreams out loud, and then they show up and you're like, oh shit, now what?
Now I gotta follow this
through. I see that, and so it is. It's done. So as we wrap up this segment, I'd really love if there's a storyteller, maybe some young storyteller, or maybe someone who's like in their latter part of their journey, maybe in retirement, right? They've lived their career, they've taken care of their kids, they've lived their entire life for other people, and now they're ready to say, hey, in this last chapter, I really want to do what I want to do, and maybe they have a similar vision as you do. What would be some advice that you would give to that person?
Oh, it sounds cliche, but I would say stay true to you.
Yeah.
What feels good to you throughout the journey, and keep telling stories, because at the end of the day, that's what's going to attract people to you.
Yes.
And practice what you preach. That would be the last piece.
That's a big one, integrity.
Yeah. Because especially in a content-driven field, when that's what we do for our clients, I try to make sure that we're doing that for ourselves.
Yes.
So as you move through that visibility piece and getting yourself out there, make sure whatever the content thing that you are selling or storytelling thing you are selling to people is the thing that you are doing in your own life and your business.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that we saw a result of what happens when you're not kind of being true to yourself, when you think of this as the path that you're supposed to be on because it makes sense logically, but in your spirit, in your soul, in your body, it's not the right path for you.
Yeah.
And having that courage to make a shift, and, that can make you sick, as we see.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
It's been so good having. I'm so glad
you.
we got an opportunity to get to know each
too.
other.
Thank you.
And it was worth the trip to Miami.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. And thank you for tuning in to listen to this amazing story today. Make sure that you subscribe to my YouTube channel. You also have the option to subscribe on Spotify. So maybe some of you are actually watching this interview on Spotify now. We're on all the social media channels, all of the podcast channels, and we put out brand new, beautiful interviews like this one every Wednesday. So I look forward to seeing you next week. Namaste. Stay beautiful and go out there and pursue your dreams. All right. See you then.